Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What's the most unsettling experience you've had at or around the witching hour, 3 a.m.? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was younger, I used to live in an apartment with my sister and her husband. He was out working for the weekend, so he wasn't there. I was alone in my room. I couldn't sleep. I heard this knocking in my bedroom window, and I saw this person that was trying to come down my window really slowly. I then realized that it was impossible. I was living in a basement, and the window was under a covered backyard balcony. I look at the person to see if it's kind of black and foggy. I saw the figure drop its body down, then get up as if it amortized its drop and turned slowly towards my bed. I just closed my eyes to fake as if I was sleeping, and I felt a weight on my body. I just opened my eyes and ran to my open bedroom's light. I couldn't fall back asleep that night. I don't think it was sleep paralysis, because a few minutes later I hear my sister waking up screaming. When I asked her what happened, she told me she had a nightmare where she saw a black figure at the entrance of her bedroom. I ended up going in the living room close to her room for the rest of the night, and I didn't go to bed until morning arrived. After that, I started seeing tons of things in that apartment. I worked graveyard for so many years that I wouldn't know where to start. I will say, however, that I've been having a really bad nightmares nearly every night for about 2 years now. I can usually shake them off, but I literally woke up screaming at 3 a.m. this past Thursday after having a really terrifying dream about a friend who had passed away back in October. I've been mentally rattled since that moment. This was only around 1:30 in the morning, but my brother had gotten locked out of the house. For context, my room window is right above a relatively flat roof that, with a little bit of balance, anyone can stand on with ease. Anyways, it was around 1:30 in the morning, and my brother had gotten locked out of the house, but knew that I was awake. He climbed onto the roof and knocked on my window, scared the ever-living shit out of the 13-year-old me to see a 6-foot-tall figure of a man crouched outside my window to be let in. Had one of those sleep recording apps. 2 nights in a row between 3 and 3:30, it recorded someone with a short cough, like they were clearing their voice. It was definitely in the same room. I'd estimate a few feet from where I was sleeping. It was clearly a young male voice. I'm a middle-aged female and was home alone those nights. Also, you can hear me breathing over the sound of the cough. Not unsettling, so to say, but overall weird. When I was about 8 or 9, I'm 20 now, I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. There was nothing in my room, it was pitch black. Suddenly, there was a light in the middle of my room. A woman who I didn't know was standing clear as day in the middle of my room. She was dressed in a white dress, but not quite a wedding gown. I didn't feel scared at all. I remember feeling calm and safe. I asked her who she was, and she just smiled, then was gone. I never thought anything of it until about a year later. When I was looking through some of my dad's old photo albums, there was a lady in a lot of the photos who looked familiar, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it. I asked my dad who she was. She was my grandmother, who died when my dad was 16. To this day, I believe I have a guardian angel. I collect clowns. Anything to do with them. It honestly started as a joke, but I can't stop. Anyway, I have this clown head where if you turn it, it plays a tune. So there I was, playing some games with a friend at 3 a.m. on a summer night. The clown head was across the room, and it starts dinging, 1 note at a time. I hadn't gone to that side of the room at all. As it dings, it slowly spins its head. This honestly happens a lot, so I wasn't too fazed. After a while, I noticed it hadn't dinged in a while, so I turned to look at it, and it's staring straight at me. It was originally facing parallel to where I was facing and was straight to my right, so it turned 90 degrees. After that, I took off its stand so it couldn't spin or ding. It still occasionally does though. Well, I mean, you collect clowns, so I think a lot of this is on you. Also, how does that work if you bring a member of the sex you prefer home? Good luck. I was messing around on my Nintendo DS. This was a while ago, and I take a photo. When I look at the photo, there's a skull clear as day in the picture. There's nothing that looks remotely like a skull in my room, so I just got scared and played the Phineas and Ferb game. One night I was around 16 and home alone because my parents were out of town. My dog was sleeping with me, and sometime between 2 and 3 a.m., I heard these two girls run through my backyard screaming. I look outside and nothing's there. I still won't stay home alone because of that. Back in the old days, we had video CDs, movies badly compressed to fit on a CD, most often Hong Kong bootlegs of copies, and you'd get corrupted discs a lot. DVD players could play them, so teenage me thought it was a good idea to watch a questionable video CD of The Ring past midnight. Oh boy. You know those scary corrupted GIFs where heavily pixelated images distort into something horrific and grotesque? The movie did that thrice, freezing each time, made my heart stop. After the third time, I only continued watching with the light on and hugging my cat. I have a really beautiful antique gold frame set up in my hallway like a witch's window. It wasn't intentional to think of it as one though, only that it resembled one on passing one night while walking by it. I have some stars and little moons dangling inside of it, and I think it looks cool, so I've left it as it is. I sat down under it earlier one night and remembered that it's only kind of stuck up there, not really securely or anything, and that it could potentially fall at any time and really hurt me, or tear up my papier-mâché cat sculpture sitting beneath it. Still though, I did nothing about it and went about my day. Later on though, around 3 a.m., really close to it, because I was about to come into bed after a preacher marathon, I hear a loud crash. My heart jumped, but I instantly knew what it was, and full on expected to find the frame broken, the cat smashed, and my bench gouged. Nope, flawless. Standing upright against the wall, like I purposefully had put it there, resting its pristine corner on the center of one of the fluffy pillows. It didn't even have a scratch or the lavender paint. Needless to say, it's back up, and I still need to secure the frame properly. I've learned nothing. One night, I, female 20, was home alone in my room chilling, and I heard something in my hallway, so I panicked, locked my door, and called my little sister to ask her when she'd be coming over to stay. She was out drinking, and my house was the closest to her. And I was like, what the F? Someone or something was trying to open my door. It stopped for 5 minutes, and I got up to try and find something to protect myself. It stopped again for about 20 minutes, then it happened again. I called my guy mates, and they rushed over and swore nobody was here. Everything was locked up. Was walking home drunk from a party at 18 years old with a friend. We were walking past our high school on a road with the school fields on one side and bush on the other. We heard a car approaching, and it pulled over into the school bus stop in front of us. A lady got out, absolutely screaming, and starts kicking the car door. A guy hops out and starts going after her. She climbs on the hood of the car and starts putting her high heels through the car's windshield. They were dressed like they'd been to a banquet. He pulls her off the bonnet and throws her onto the path literally meters in front of us and starts strangling her. I immediately get out my phone and call the cops, then run into a bush next to the school field to hide from this guy as he was suddenly aware of us and stopped strangling her to start abusing us. He started approaching and we ran. He went back to the girl and started strangling again. My friend ran over to pull him off, and he came back after us, before getting back in the car and driving off. He stops when he realizes he can't see through the shattered windshield and comes back after us. We ran through our old school and hid outside the library while still on the phone to the police. Luckily, they were super quick, and we walked back to where there were a few cars to give a statement. Sadly, it seemed like a domestic and not the first time. As a side story, we were lucky we could get onto the fields and run from him, otherwise we would have had to cross the road and go bush in the pitch black. A tornado had destroyed the fence surrounding the school fields the week before, which is extremely rare in our city. All in all, it worked out okay, but definitely have one young and invincible selves a wake-up call. So it's like really late, possible after 3 a.m., and I'm pulling an all-nighter by myself. There's a few lights on in my room so I can see. My feet get cold, so I walk over to my sock drawer, and when I opened it, there was nothing in there. I was so confused, so I looked in all my other drawers, and the sock drawer was the only empty one. I pinched myself a few times and messaged one of my friends to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I was so weirded out, so I decided to go to sleep. When I woke up, the first thing I did was go to my sock drawer and check if they were there. And sure enough, every single one of my socks was in there. I checked my phone and the messages with my friends were still there, so I wasn't dreaming. Still, one of my weirdest unexplained mysteries. That's odd. I have the same thing happen in my dryer almost every time. There's always at least one that disappears. I was 11 and I had woken up because I was thirsty as hell. I went to the kitchen to grab a cup of water, and when I looked out my kitchen window, I was horrified. I saw the face of a very tall, thin man bent over and had his face on the glass. His mouth was unusually large. I dropped my water and screamed. He disappeared, and my mom came running out of her room. I never leave my room at night anymore without someone with me. I was with my dog, and there was a big crash outside, and I look out, and there's a car crash, and there's a head just lying on the ground. I stay frozen in shock. I live with my parents, and I scream. Everyone comes running downstairs, and I just point, and there is no head, no crash, no blood, no thing. In college, there was a cemetery between my house and my friend's apartment. I left their apartment early in the night and was drunkenly brave enough to take a shortcut through the cemetery. I ended up falling down, passing out in the cemetery and waking up around 3 or so. I woke up confused and there was fog on the ground, just like in horror movies. It was the most scared I've ever been. I had woken up in my pitch-black bedroom to the box fan for some reason being suddenly shut off, and a soda can on my nightstand being pushed off and then rolled across the room. No fans on, no pets in the room. I was the only person in there. No windows open, no drafts, no explanation for how the fan got turned off on its own. The switch was turned, and no, I didn't forget to turn it on. The sudden silence is what jolted me awake. I always sleep with my box fan on. And who or what shoved the soda can off my nightstand and pushed it across the floor? I couldn't turn the light on fast enough. I was out for a night stroll, and I got a bit hot. I'd put my pajama trousers underneath my jeans since I thought it'd be colder than it was. So I hide in some bushes in a roundabout to take them off, but of course, I have to take off my jeans first. One car came past during this, but I think they didn't see me, or they decided not to question why someone was changing their trousers in the middle of the roundabout. I guess I may have been their unsettling experience. Not really sure about the exact time this happened, but I was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time. I was very obsessed about getting a high grade. My aunt used to take care of me, and we lived in this old family house of my grand aunt, just the two of us. It was before our bedtime when my naive self looked at the old family picture hanging on the wall by the kitchen, where there's stairs leading to the basement of the house. I was staring at it when I came across a picture of someone I don't really know at all and started roasting the person, saying, "He's so ugly. Why does his face look deformed?" Later that night, me and my aunt slept in the basement. We were sleeping on the floor. I'm a weird kid. When I was having a nightmare about the same person as the one I roasted in the picture, except in my dream, he was fatter and was coming after every single person in the burger place where my aunt took me as a reward for having a high grade. He was murdering every single person he came across with and showed no remorse. I woke up in the middle of the night, still laying on the floor, my aunt beside me with one of her legs being touching by someone. I looked at whose hand it was, and it was the same person in my nightmare and the picture. He was grinning at me and staring at me as if he was having fun playing tricks with me, and his grins are starting that he will kill my aunt if I moved or say any word. I woke up my aunt crying hysterically, trying to warn her about him. She didn't mention anything about it or barely told me anything until she talked to my dad and my other relatives about it, except I was already in grade school when they told me that the person I might have seen in the basement was my cousin's grandpa, who got hit by a car or truck crossing a street on the day my other aunt's wedding day, and his entire face was ruined. When I was 14, I went on vacation to Massachusetts and got a book about that had different witch stories all around the time of the Salem witch trials. I didn't start reading the book until I got home, and these stories were pretty weird to begin with, but once I started reading them, I would wake up at 3 a.m. on the dot and would go back to sleep till 4, and this kept going on until I finished the book. I was around 9 to 10 years old. I woke up hearing noise downstairs in the kitchen, as if someone was opening and closing the water tap and walking around in big boots, as well as weird music that, looking back, reminded me of Board of Canada's music. But I didn't know the band at the time, so maybe it was completely something else. I was scared, but thought it was my stepdad. He was an ambulance driver, so he often came back home at random hours and never took his boots off in the house, so yeah. But it got really scary when I heard him snore in his room, so it couldn't be him, and the noise was getting louder. So I decided to be brave, took my desk chair for self-defense, and slowly walked to the stairs, went down, and the sound was clear as day. I couldn't figure out a different source than reality. It had to be real. I was about to reach the end of the stairs, holding my chair ready to beat the living shit out of whoever was in my house, when my mom walked out of her room and saw me down the stairs, and all of a sudden the sound stopped. And she was just staring at me like, "Ambrose, what the F are you doing?" When I explained to her that I was hearing sounds downstairs, she just replied that maybe I was dreaming, or I was tripping on the meds. I took her explanation as the most logical, but I swear that my hallucinations never got, and still never get this real. So I'm still convinced. Boy, do I have a story for you. I live in Illinois in the Knox County area. We have a place in our area called Wolf Covered Bridge. Extremely haunted, but we wanted to know. Have had a million other different insane experiences there, including objects thrown at us, and visually saw and heard something running towards us and disappear at the foot of the bridge. But all of that has nothing to compare to this next story. I believe it was around 3 a.m., but honestly I don't remember. We were going back to the bridge because my brother had gotten 2 attachments from spirits on the bridge, and cause he pissed them off and they wanted revenge. We had a medium with us, so we could easily communicate with them. It started out fine, and that it got extremely aggressive, to the point that we could all hear this as well. They told my brother to never come back to that bridge under any circumstances. What sent us all running back to the car was we saw something hanging from the top of the bridge. We know it wasn't there prior, so don't say it was just our imagination. We all saw it. Someone in the car saw exactly what it was, but was so terrified they haven't told anyone what they saw except one person. Ever since then, none of us have gone back, and none of us plan to. Yeah, well, if you don't need to traverse the bridge and it has that type of history, don't go back. Problem solved. You're welcome. Waking up every single day because my dog gets me up around that because my wife gets up then. I've been getting up stupid early for decades. Most unsettling was my housemate giving a BJ to a dude that was recently married while I was smoking a cigarette, and she didn't stop. That was weird, but I was too tired to care. I had to get on the road by 4 a.m. This was on the front porch. This was back in the 90s. I did turn my back to their business, but I needed a smoke to wake up, and it was my porch too, damn it. A couple crashed their car with another car a few steps near the house I live. It happened in front of my next door neighbor. This actually happened around 3:35 to 3:45 a.m., but at around 3 a.m. or so, one of the guys were so ready to get into a fight, lots of yelling and throwing profanity, and his girlfriend or wife had to yell at him to chill out several times. I had sleep paralysis for years. You don't even want to know the shit my effed up brain made me see around 3 a.m. Demons, ghosts, serial killers breaking into my house, half animal humanoids trying to rape me, my old woman on my chest trying to smother me, hallucinations of levitating into a dark shadow or void of demonic evil energy, my husband next to me in bed, but he was actually a corpse or a zombie. For like 10 years, I had the most effed up sleep paralysis episodes you could imagine. I don't live with my mom, I live with my dad, but I visit her on weekends. I have my own room there. It is in the basement. One night, I was staying up because I had something I didn't want to do the next day, but I was just chilling watching TV, and I hear a noise. I look up, note that I don't have a door. I look into the hall and don't see anything. It's pitch black. I get creeped out, but just forget about it. Then I hear something fall. I say, F it, with the switch for the hall is right outside the door. So I walk and turn on the light in the hall. Nothing. I enter my mom's old office and the fireplace is open. We have a cover on it. I remember it being closed because I think it's super weird, so I just decide that my brother probably opened it, so I go upstairs after leaving my remote on the bed. I come back down and all of a sudden, my remote is gone. I turned on my light. I checked everywhere at this point, was really freaked out. I just decided to fall asleep. I woke up the next morning and went into the laundry room, and there it was, sitting on the dryer. I said F this, told my mom, and her response, well, guess we have a ghost. I've refused to sleep downstairs, and now when I go there, I sleep upstairs, and I don't use periods or commas. When everybody was sleeping, it was a lockdown time. I was in my room, just finished watching a movie at 3 a.m. After that, I wanted to smoke, but I saw I didn't have a lighter or a matchbox, so I quietly snuck out of my room. Everything was dark. My parents were sleeping in the other room. I went to the living room table where usually mom keeps the matchbox or dad's lighter. So I took my dad's lighter, went to my room, and lit a candle because I wanted to smoke 2 cigarettes. And I don't want to come back again to the living room repeatedly because if my parents wake up, they would have caught me. I still remember the dark room was lit with candle, and also my dedication for smoking was unbelievable. It's really funny to think of it now. Was on my roof listening to music, not uncommon. First I heard ducks quacking and thought nothing of it because there's a pond nearby. But then I realized how odd it was that they were doing it at this time. They didn't stop, and it started to sound like distant manic laughing. Looked over at the house next to me, and on its roof was something or someone just standing there. It was too dark to see it properly, but it literally just looked like a black figure. No distinct features besides its shoulders and head. The roof is way too steep to stand on upright, or at all. I was sitting in the valley between the 2 slants, and it was just silently standing there. I don't know which way it was facing, but I was just frozen to the spot. I don't remember much after that, but at some point, I climbed back through the window into my room and tried to pass it off as a bad dream, or something.